All right, here we go. We are live. What's up, folks? This is kind of an impromptu stream. Uh, don't know how many people are going to join this. May or may not leave the stream up. This might be one actually that I do and go ahead and leave up as a follow up to the video that I had previously released. Now at this point, yesterday, because we're past midnight over here on the East Coast. But yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting. I'm gonna wait for some people to filter in here a bit before we go ahead and get this little discussion going. Excuse me, get this discussion going, and because it seems to have really caused a bit of a shockwave, I guess you could say, through the Power Rangers community and maybe to a lesser extent the Tokusatsu community. I guess anybody that cares about Power Rangers, I guess. So thought we could have a bit of an interesting discussion with this. So like I said, wait for a couple people to come in, and then we'll get right into it because I think it's a interesting discussion to have. So we got 10 people in here. What's up, DHR2 Productions? No, we can't say that it's fake news because we don't know for sure. What it is that potentially, look, Illuminati has broken news before that has actually turned out to be credible. Do we know for a fact that this is? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what Hasbro says. I think it's too early to say to just, hey, it's completely fake news. What's up, CLW? I think we just have to really wait and see what's going on with all this, right? I mean, I see a lot of people throwing shade the Illuminati's way. News sources, look, the news is only as good as the source they get it from, right? It's not to say that they can't be wrong. It's totally within the realm of possibility that they could be completely wrong, right? And that whoever this person's source is might not know as much as they claim. But again, that doesn't change the fact that they've been right before with other news that they have reported about on their site. So I wouldn't just completely dismiss it. Yeah, allegedly. I said allegedly only because, again, we don't know for sure because we don't know that Hasbro themselves have not confirmed the news. So we can't say with 100% certainty that it is 100% accurate. It's really just only speculation at this point. So Peter's Pants, hi. How's it going? It's a great name. And Teradur, how you doing? And that's fine. That's fine to be skeptical about it. Everything that comes out about anything, really, in regards to entertainment that is not coming from a studio themselves, should be taken with a grain of salt. It should be. You should have a healthy degree of skepticism when it comes to this stuff. So, Key Dragon, you can say no fake news, but I mean, what if it turns out to be true? You know what I mean? Because again, they've reported on stuff that has turned out to be true. Now, at this point, it's not confirmed. That's all we can say. It's speculation at best at this point. But again, they have reported on stuff before that has ended up being true. But as of right now, we got to take it with a grain of salt, and we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what Hasbro says, because at the same time, you got to think, if there is no merit to any of this, then you could expect that and especially if it gains any kind of traction, you could expect that Hasbro, of course, would put out a statement completely debunking it, right? So should WB or Sony, Microsoft should buy? I don't know who should buy the franchise. I mean, I think Hasbro is doing a fine job of it, at least as far as I've seen. Beast Morphers, I think by and large, by most people, would consider it to be a success, right? It has been well received. The general consensus seems to be that it's a good series. I've seen a little bit of it. I think that it's okay. I don't think it's, I can't say that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's definitely, from what I've seen of Beast Morphers, it's definitely a lot better than previous things I had seen being put out by Saban Brand since they got the franchise back. So we have to keep that in mind. Let's see. What were they thinking, Julius? I don't know. See, that's the thing. That look, again, stories are only going to be as good as the sources they come from. And again, we don't know. We can't just. I don't think it's fair for people to outright just say that it is a lie and that it is fake news, because again, we don't know. We have no idea. I'm trying to look at some of the comments here. We'll get into that later, though, I guess. But this was the article, again, released by Illuminati earlier. They rightfully had reported about Real Soldier being the next season of Power Rangers, and they did confirm a couple other things regarding the team up and things like that. But again, is it possible that they're wrong? Sure, absolutely, 100% within the realm of possibility that they could be wrong. What's up, big cool guy? How you doing? Pete Span says, I really think an animated show from Hasbro could be a good thing. Lots of room for a creative story and more chance to try better story arcs. And here's the other thing about it, right? The interesting thing about stuff like this is that it always creates these kind of discussions with people of the future of the series, right? And it's very interesting. When I did the video earlier today, a lot of people had different ideas on why it would be good if Hasbro did decide to go that route. Everybody's going to have a difference of opinion when it comes to stuff like that, but it's interesting. It starts discussion, and I think that's ultimately a good thing, because Hasbro, things like that are going to get back to Hasbro, and it'll help them decide what it is that they might want to do with this series moving forward. What's up, Charizard Ranger? Well, don't take it as full gospel yet, Charizard Ranger. It could end up being with no merit, but at the same time, it's just like, again, you're staking a lot of reputation on getting something like this wrong, right? So we have to see. Let's see. What if Jason David, Frank, and Austin St. John join the DCU? That would be interesting. So doubt. OG says, I hope they stay live action. As a kid, seeing Power Rangers, it seemed so real to me. I always wanted to be a Power Ranger. I never wanted it to be a cartoon. Look, you can't be a drawing. That's a good point. Well, the thing is, again, it being a live action series, that's part of its charm, right? That's part of what drew a lot of people to it, because of course you're going to relate more to a live action person than you are an animated character, because they're real, so there's a lot more there's a lot more, again, that you can relate to there. So Pepto Slurpee, that's the thing. We don't know if it's a proven fact or not. It's just really, we got to take it really as speculation at this point. Like I've said prior, Illuminati has reported on stuff that has been right at times. That's not to say that they're flawless. That's not to say that this will be 100% true. But I think the more interesting thing to come out of this story is just kind of the discussion that started among fans. Now, I think that people completely losing their minds over the fact that they reported this is, getting upset with them. Look, they're a news site. They're going to go by what they think is credible information and their report on it, right? When it comes to these, when it comes to the entertainment medium, right? So Metroid Primes is just another terrible thing to add to the list of 2020. Let's see, because let's face it, out of everything live action to come out of Japan, Power Rangers was a legit way to watch it, but with American actors and dubbing over footage. Yeah, I would prefer it to stay that way, but at the same time, let's just see, like, what if, right? And it's a big what if, of course. Let's just say hypothetically they did go ahead and end their relationship with Toei, right? And decided to create their own original live action Power Rangers. Would that really be a bad thing? No, probably not. Obviously they wouldn't have to worry about licensing the newest season of Power Rangers from Super Sentai from Toei. And they can really create their own stories from scratch, as opposed to creating a story around the footage that they get. So that could be something that would be beneficial to them. but it's hard to say. Stephen Bauer says it's been confirmed on Discord. This article is fake. Sorry to tell you, Stephen Bauer, but Discord, people talking about it on Discord doesn't mean that it's fake. You know what I mean? There's, you're talking about going onto a Discord server and a bunch of people talking and them speculating themselves. So unless the Illuminati themselves offer a retraction and say that they were wrong, or until Hasbro comes out and says themselves that it's wrong, all we can do is speculate. There's no way to really know if it's fake. There's no way to know if it's true. Like I said, we can only take into account what we've seen so far in regards to what the Illuminati has done in the past, which, I've seen people say, oh, they've been wrong about stuff. Well, yeah, I'm sure they probably have, but they've also been right about stuff, at times. So taking that into consideration, it's one of those things that, again, it's all speculation at this point until either Hasbro themselves says, no, that's absolutely not true, or Hasbro comes out and says, well, it absolutely is true. So that's really what's going to determine whether or not any of this is true. I mean, outside of somebody who is an actual, employee of Hasbro, maybe coming out into the public space and making some kind of statement themselves, whether it lends to any merit, I guess we'll see. So I'm not sure about how Caraminder is doing because it's still relatively new. Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know. That's again, and I said this in the video that I made earlier. I said, if it's true, I never once claimed that what was in the Illuminati article was fact. The only thing that I said was that Illuminati has at times reported stuff that has turned out to be true, but I'm pretty sure they've also reported stuff that or have speculated on stuff that has no merit behind it as well. I think every news source has probably done that, at some point in time or another, especially within these spaces, right, of geek information, or geekly stuff, right? So it's one of those things that I guess we'll have to wait and see. It really is. So Pepto Slurpee says, I mean, if they're going to make their own suits and mechs and story, I'm up for it, but I'm going to miss adapting. Yeah, exactly. I would miss that part of it too. I think that, again, the most interesting thing to really happen surrounding this particular article is the discussion that is starting within the Power Rangers community and the stuff that people would want to see. Like, it's interesting to hear people discuss on Power Rangers potentially being an animated series and how they would like it if it was an animated series. And you have the people that, of course, are going to be the traditionalists that wanted the live action way, that want to get the Super Sentai adaptations, which I'm okay with it. If it continues that way, of course, that would be the most ideal in my opinion. But at the same time, I also wouldn't be opposed to them doing their very own live action series that's completely original, right? Where they kind of make their own suits from scratch, they design them from scratch, and they kind of, they get a chance, again, like I said, to create their own story, as opposed to having to create a story around this stock footage they're getting from Japan. So I think that would be interesting. I just think that whichever way they go, I mean, is the way they go. I also talked about it earlier in the video that I made, that this would be a huge cost-cutting measure for them if they were to go ahead and go the route of a animated series. Obviously, that's going to cost a lot less than making a live-action series. I mean, unless they get some, elite animation studio with that has some kind of ridiculous price tag on it. But so let's see. Probably the stories the Power Rangers have done lately with the footage have not been all that great. I really don't think they can make original stuff until they get better writers. Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, but I would say this. I would argue that Beast Morphers seems to have been a well-written series. General consensus seems to be that Beast Morphers was a good, well-written series. I've seen a good amount of Beast Morphers episodes, but not the whole series yet. I think it's a decent series. I think it's definitely much better than anything that Saban Brands was putting out with when they got the series back. But I guess we have to wait. Charizard Ranger says, however, if they do an animated, here are two things I want them to do. One, adapt Boom Studios comic stories, like one season it's an adaptation of NPR, another season about GG PR. I mean, obviously that's definitely an option on the table, right? That they could potentially go that route. The thing is, though, because those were based on previous Super Sentai seasons, those suits and whatnot, I mean, that there would still be some licensing in regards to that, because that's still an IP. That's because Power Rangers. Look, Power Rangers is a series based on a long-standing IP from Japan, right? So I would think there still be some kind of licensing cost that they would have to pay there to Toei for using those designs. Hey, what's going on, Donnie Pearson? Yeah, this is a little bit of a late stream. This one won't go too long tonight. This is just kind of touching up upon the news earlier, but I respectfully doubt that Dino Fury would be the final season of Power Rangers. So would I. Well, they're talking about, this article really just talked about it being the final live action series, where it could potentially be the final live action series, at least in terms of the partnership with Toei, if that actually does end. So, but again, this is all purely speculation. Hunter Iggy says, Toy Brothers, here all the YouTube channels that Hasbro does not want to do any more live action Power Rangers because they don't want to pay actors lots of money. I don't know about that. See, that's the thing. Again, this is all purely speculation. I mean, Hasbro is the number one toy company in the world. They're not really struggling in terms of, well, they might be, because of what's happening right now with the pandemic and stuff like that. I mean, that obviously had to have affected sales, but they're not going anywhere. Hasbro's not going anywhere. And I think, personally, in my opinion, I think the best thing to do would be to keep it live action, because again, it's one of those things. It's just, it's not that I can never imagine an animated Power Ranger series. I just would prefer it be live action, right? I think that's the way most people would prefer to consume it, in the live action format. But eventually I think, all good things do come to an end. It's not to say that Power Rangers is going to come to an end necessarily in terms of its live action. This just means that, it would end with them not getting any footage, if this turns out to be true. Like I said, and that's an if. It's still an if until Hasbro either says yay or nay on it. This would just mean that they would no longer get the Super Sentai footage to make seasons of Power Rangers. They would either go the route of making their own live action series, or presumably they would go the route of making their own live action series or an animated series. So, and that's the other thing too. Yeah, they're not going to. Yeah, Jack Bandit, I think a lot of people would agree with you on Go Busters there. Very underrated Super Sentai season. And not a bad way, Charizard Ranger. WG Phil says, hope this means Toei will start localizing Sentai so toys would be easier to buy instead of buying in Japan with outrageous shipping due to COVID. Well, I mean, we're seeing a lot of changes there, right, on that front. I don't know. I don't know about that, David. We're seeing a lot of changes on that front, right? With Team Rider, right? They're starting to make it easier for people to buy. You have people that are actively advocating and helping the process of making Japanese toys available to an American market, right? Making them much more readily available than ever before. So if that continues, I mean, even if something were to happen where, for whatever reason, Hasbro were to end their relationship with Toei, I mean, I think with the efforts of people like Team Rider or somebody stepping up to do that, we could potentially see somebody go ahead and do that with Super Sentai toys as well, right? Maybe they come up with a team Sentai, right? That ends up helping get some of those morphers and changers in the Super Sentai series in the hands of American fans. Yeah, I know I'm on pretty late today, Mike Walters. I just wanted to discuss this for a little bit. Like I said, I probably won't be on too long tonight. I just thought that it was interesting because a lot of people are really, like I said, in the Power Rangers community and by extension, some of the Tokusatsu community also, there's like kind of mixed reactions about this particular article. It seems to have been very controversial. I mean, you see some of the other Power Rangers news sources kind of commentating on it, giving their take on it. People are kind of divided about it. Some people think that there's no way, it's absolutely false, but and it could be. That's the thing. That's 100%. They could be completely wrong. It's absolutely within the realm of possibility. I don't think that people should just outright dismiss Illuminati, like I said before, because they have gotten some things right before. So really what'll determine it is whether or not Hasbro comes out and says, well, none of that is true, and here's why. And they go ahead and make their announcement. Or they come out and say, yeah, you know what? These guys are right. This is what we got going on, and this is why we're doing it. So let's see what else people are saying here. David says, to be fair, with some Power Rangers, Super Sentai are interconnected, so who knows? They are, of course, that there's a symbiotic relationship there because, of course, Super Sentai is what supplies the stock footage in order for them to create Power Rangers, right? That's what that's the base for them to build around. Well, OG Saban's not really involved anymore, so this is all Hasbro now at this point. Alpha Proto says, if Hasbro ended the Toei relationship, would Hasbro just milk MMPR nostalgia like with the games and comics? I mean, they could, as long as, I mean, they could potentially do that because I mean they bought all that stuff from Saban Brands. They could, but I don't think that that's what would happen, right? I would like to think that they're going to be, if they do end, if it turns out being true, and they do end their relationship with Toei, I think, there's people that are saying that they wouldn't mind seeing a Power Rangers animated series, but I would actually prefer a live action original series. I know that it would be a lot more, I shouldn't say a little bit, it would be a lot more costly to do it that way, but you keep the spirit of Power Rangers alive that way, I think, a bit more by doing it that way. But, Hasbro's going to do what they want to do. I mean, look at the things that have happened. And this is why I wouldn't just outright dismiss what they're reporting on here, because think about what's happened already, right? The fact that Bandai is no longer making the toys. And truly, look, however people feel about Bandai America, Bandai Japan, they've had a very, I would go as far as to say very kind of, I won't say paternal, but more of almost like I would equate it probably closely to a marriage that they have with Toei in Japan, because from the time as far back as, if we go back as far as like the days of Kamen Rider, right, that started a little bit before Super Sentai, some years before Super Sentai, you had Bandai making toys, and Bandai has a lot of say in what shows up in Super Sentai, and in some of the designs and stuff like that show up in Super Sentai, and that relationship ended. I mean, at least over here with Hasbro kind of taking the reins on the toys. Not that it really matters, because again, they're still adapting a show from Japan, so I mean, they're still going to make toys based around that stuff, but that was like a huge shock to people. Brian Hoyt, I hope I hope they do a 30th anniversary season. I hope that, like I said, I hope that it does not end up being true, right? So, but we don't know. Again, we'll know for sure, I guess, once somebody from Hasbro comes out and says, "Hey, look, this has no merit to it. We're not doing that." But I guess we'll see. Lord Nexus 193 says, "It reminds me if Hasbro and Takara would end their partnership with Transformers, since Transformers came from Diaclone and Microman, and those lines are and they're owned by Takara." Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it was when Bandai was like, "We're out, we're done." So let's see. Armando Garcia says, "I heard in the morning was only a rumor, is already official." Well, that's the thing, Armando. We don't know. We don't know if it's official. We're not going to know for sure until Hasbro themselves makes a public statement about it. So, and the thing is, if they're going to be quiet, I think the only way that Hasbro would speak out publicly about this is if it really causes that much of a stir that they feel the need that they have to. If not, I would expect to hear something from Hasbro probably around the end of August, because that's usually August is around the time that Power Morphicon is typically, and this would be if Power Morphicon were happening this year in August, that would be where Hasbro would go ahead. Well, originally that's where Saban would go ahead and announce the next season and the cast of the next season. It would be around the weekend of Power Morphicon where they would reveal the cast and all that stuff. So it'd be sometime around, middle to end of August normally, where we would hear some news about Power Rangers and what's going to happen next. So since we already heard, or around, Toy Fair time or in a convention earlier in the year, maybe, a bigger platform of a convention, like I said, if not Toy Fair, maybe somewhere like San Diego Comic-Con, but of course that, these are not things that are happening this year. All we would have had really outside of just maybe one of those bigger conventions to make these announcements, or a big event that's happening, would be like Power Morphicon. And Power Morphicon, unfortunately, like I said, not happening this year. They would have revealed the cast. They probably would have revealed more details about Dino Fury and things like that. We would have gotten the cast reveal. But that's not happening. So I don't know. Maybe they'll go ahead and make some announcements around August. I would think that the earliest that they would be around August, because that's when we'd hear a little bit more originally, at least from Saban Brands, because again they would do it through Power Morphicon, and they would probably reveal some more information after that after doing some reveals and stuff. But we don't have that happening this year. So I think that if they have a statement to make about any of this, it will be before the end of the year. But unless, like I said, unless it causes so much of a stir that they feel that they need to speak about it before that. So I guess we'll see. Yeah. David, yeah, they did buy it for a good chunk of change. So yeah, you'd have to think that they do have some big plans for it. Are the Kiramiger toys selling well? I don't know, but I do have some Kiramiger toys. I got some when I went to Japan. So it is some research on the cost. A normal episode costs around $600,000 per Power Rangers episode, which is considered cheap for the TV world. In animation, it costs around $400,000 to $1 million. And that's why they would go the route of doing animation. Again, depending on what studio they would get, but it would probably, the cost would be significantly less for them, probably. Let's see. Mike Walter says, I believe Hasbro has had their own cable channel within the last, and it would make sense for them to go ahead and after the deal ends with Nickelodeon, for them to go ahead and transition the show over to, I believe it was, what was it called? The Hub or whatever. I'm not sure if that's still around, but if that's still around, I would think that that's where they would transition Power Rangers over to. Charizard Ranger says, what I'm worried about is what I learned from It's Your Henshin Time. I don't think Hasbro will have the same success that Toei had at the end of their partnership with Marvel. I don't know. See, it's hard to say. at this point. It's still so fresh. And again, this is news that we have to look at and be we have to be skeptical about it, right? We have to take it with a grain of salt for now because we don't know. We don't know if this is for sure going to be something that happens. So all we can do is just kind of sit and wait. That's all we can do. But if you look over like this, right? Some of the stuff they say here, they say that they got word that they'll be will not be continuing their partnership with Toei. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And it just it's hard for me to imagine, right? Power Rangers going on without Toei, unless again they're really going to try and go for their own kind of live action version of the series. But I guess we'll see. I mean, yeah, a lot of people are upset about this, though. A lot of people were saying, it's just like Luminardi is not credible and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't say that they're like the perfect news source, but to say that they haven't gotten stuff right before in the past, that's just not true. They have. I mean, I'm sure that not everything they've reported on, whether it be Power Rangers or the other things that they report about, is going to be 100% correct. I'm pretty sure they put out plenty of stuff that is speculative. But I don't think that they should be completely dismissed either. So, again, this is just one of those things that right now it's just pure speculation. So, we just have to purely speculate on it. There are plenty of places. This is where he really got into the speculation. I mean, the stuff that they report about up here is stuff that they've heard from a source. So, I guess we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Kai says, I mean, breaking it up close to the 30 years partnership is kind of sad, but I don't think it will go well with many. I hope that they don't. Like I said, I really hope that they don't. I don't. I would prefer it to kind of stay the way it is, but I guess we'd have to see, right? We'd have to see how it would be handled, how it would be treated as if they decided to go in animated format, or if they decided to go ahead and make their own original live action series. I wouldn't be opposed to that either, because again, it gives and I said this before, I've said it probably about 3 times at this point, but it gives them that chance to really build off, it gives them a chance to be a bit more creative instead of trying to create a story around the stock footage that they get from the Super Sentai series. They can have a little bit more leeway to create stories that, from scratch, from the beginning. There's more of a chance for them to have their own original continuity with the story if they went ahead and made their own original live action series. Donnie Pearson says, I am totally cool with whether Netflix or Discovery Family would replace Nickelodeon as America's new home for Power Rangers. Sure, some people would not disagree with you. But yeah, we'll have to, like I said, we'll have to wait and see where all this leads. At this point, I'm not necessarily convinced either way. Like I said, I'm just kind of like, there could be truth to it, could be complete BS. Really, we'll know for sure once Hasbro says something about it. So, there's as much, I would say, give it a 50-50 chance, you know what I mean? Unless we get something or someone that, again, comes out from Hasbro and says just absolutely no way whatsoever, just outright debunks it and is able to prove their credentials. But until then, like I said, it's going to be a 50-50 for a lot of people, because maybe they will, maybe they won't. And it would be really messed up if they just made up a story, right, just for the sake of making up a story. I mean, that's never good for any website, right, that's trying to put themselves out there as a credible news source. So let's see. Kai says, given how Beast Morphers had original footage, maybe they want to buy the suits and props as well as Villain Layer and Megazord stock footage to make 22 episode season with 1 hour long episodes. Interesting. I don't think they would go that far. I mean, I think they need to keep it in a, they need to, in my opinion, keep it, 20, or in that 30-minute format. So David says, in all honesty, that's kind of been holding them back, though. I assume you're referring to them having to use the stock footage. Is that what you're referring to? I actually have an idea for original Morphin series I want to take to Hasbro. Do it. Maybe they'll pay you a nice, generous sum, for the idea, and you can take it all the way to the bank. So, okay, you were referring to that, David. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out the best way. Well, I think that also has to do with the writers, right? I mean, why wouldn't you capitalize on the fact that, Super Mega Force was being adapted from Gokaiger, a pirate-themed Super Sentai? Why would you not capitalize on the fact that it was pirate-themed, right? That seemed like such a wasted opportunity. Jack Bandit 32 says, I always felt the stock footage was an advantage. They don't have to do as much. If they really wanted, they could go to RPM, do a whole lot of original footage, but they don't. I mean, yeah, again, they've managed to do a lot with some of the stuff that they put out there, right? With RPM, I mean, they made a completely different series than Go-Onger, right? One could argue they did the same thing with Power Rangers in space, because Mega Ranger wasn't really a space-based series, but they made it a space-based series, which is interesting. So it all depends on the person's creativity. I think it's, it'd be a little bit easier to create stories around a completely original live action series, just because of them by virtue of them, again, starting from scratch, starting from the very beginning, and being able to plan it like that, as opposed to, because you have to think, they have to look at the stock footage, and if there's certain situations that the Super Sentai team is doing, right, where they have to write around certain characters, right, that appear from maybe a different, we'll say from a different Toei series. Like we saw it with Space Sheriff, right? They made an episode of Beast Morphers that had Space Sheriff in it, and that's where they have to kind of work around that, right? Because they don't want that footage to go to waste, and they have to create a story for this character. Whereas if they already established the universe themselves from the beginning, if a character from another one of their shows would show up in that, it'll be, they'll be able to go ahead and it'll be easier for them to write a story, starring that character, maybe, right? So, as opposed to having to create a whole new story for a character and try to give him a background when he's just kind of coming out of the blue. Let's see. What else we got here? So, yeah, and I think a lot of people did as well. I don't think they did a poor job, but I'm just saying, imagine if they build their own universe, right, with characters that they've introduced from previous seasons. I think it'll be a lot easier for them to. It won't be as hard to really create a story. I mean, but then again, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't hard for them to create a story around Gavin at all. I'm not saying that it was, but I think it's cooler when it's characters you create yourself that you can always bring back, right? See, that's the question, right? I don't know. I guess the way it affects the series is that it gives, I don't know. I guess it would give it a definitive end. You know what I mean? If they did that, if they decided to go ahead and not do a live action series anymore, it would probably give Henshin Time a definitive end, right? Because Henshin Time is the history of Super Sentai and Power Rangers. So I guess it would just give it more of a definitive end. You know, it would end probably at Real Soldier if I ever get that far, you know, which I hope to. But I don't know. It's just, you know, it's hard. But I guess we'll see. Anyways, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this stream soon here. You know, so if y'all, I'll try to get a couple more questions in before I call it a night here. I just want to do this to just kind of discuss, you know, the fact that people are kind of losing their minds over it. Which I don't think, look, it's speculation, you know, and it's fun. I think it's fun discussion to have, you know, and it's just interesting to hear people's different opinions on it, whether or not if it were true, right? If it were to become an animated series, and how people would like to see it handled as an animated series, just as equally interesting as if they decided to go ahead and go their own live action route of creating something completely original, like, you know, like how Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog was, which was an original series. So I think that all that is interesting, and it's just fun to talk about. It's fun to speculate on. And like I said, for anybody watching the stream right now, again, this is not ironclad. This could end up being completely false. Could be completely false. But I would just outright dismiss it as untrue either until we hear something from Hasbro. You know, there could be some degree of truth, or there could be some, you know, even if it's not like the Toei and Hasbro partnership changing, maybe, or I should say, if they're still going to be partnered up, maybe it's possible that they could, remember, Toei has an animation studio as well. You know what I mean? It could be that their relationship is changing and they might have Toei animate something for them. You know, there could be changes that are coming that we just don't know about yet. So that's why I'm saying that there might be some degree of truth in that, maybe something that we don't, you know, a big change is coming on the horizon. You know, it's out there on the horizon and we just don't know it yet. So who knows? Like I said, with that being said, I'll go ahead and wrap up the stream. Appreciate you all joining me. I'll see if I can stream again tomorrow around a lot earlier too. I'll probably be streaming at about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if I go ahead and do stream, which is the usual time slot. So be on the lookout for that. For those of you that aren't following me on Twitter, be sure to do so at Toy Bounty Hunter, because if you don't get the notifications through YouTube, which is not always the case for a lot of people and why they miss videos and streams, I do always put the link for the stream in tweets and stuff like that. So what's up? Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. Unknown Existence. You know, we could catch up again tomorrow at 8 p.m. But I appreciate you all joining me. You know, usual round of suspects that are here, of course. You all have my thanks. Hopefully you guys will join again. I will try again tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will be putting the topics of that in the title of the live stream. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you all so much for joining the stream. Appreciate you guys. And you guys have a wonderful night or day, wherever it is that you're at. We'll talk again soon.